Hey, how's it going guys? My name's Daniel, aka HashLips, and welcome to my channel where I teach you how to code. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to deploy a collection, but a special collection, because this is going to be an ERC1155 contract. But what is an ERC1155 token? Well, as you can see, there's a lot of articles that talks about the differences between ERC20, ERC721, and ERC1155. Let me explain to you by drawing it out. Let me explain the differences between the ERC20, the ERC721, and the 1155 contract. As we know, the ERC20 tokens, and I might just add ERC, the ERC20 tokens basically are your everyday tokens that you see being launched on the Ethereum blockchain. The ERC20 tokens are tokens such as Shiba, a popular token that came out, but it's based off of a numeric value living in a contract on the Ethereum blockchain. So imagine we have a smart contract over here, and all the program does, the state machine, said that there is millions of tokens on this contract. And these get divided between addresses and keeps track of who owns how many Shibas. These are just tokens and have nothing to do with NFTs whatsoever. They can be associated in some way, but think of ERC20 as a normal standard token, a currency. It is important to note that each Shiba has the same value, meaning that one address can trade one Shiba to another person, and that person can send one back, and it will carry the same value. They are interchangeable. This means this is a fungible token, because it's fair trade. If I give you one Shiba, and you give me one back, I will have lost nothing in value. Now let's get to ERC721. These are the most popular coins and so-called NFTs on the market. An example would be the CryptoPunks. Now the punks or whatever NFT out there will be a contract like this as well. There will be a total supply of, let's say, 1,000. These will also be distributed to holders and addresses that holds certain amounts of tokens, and the contract keeps track of who owns how many. The big difference between ERC721 and ERC20 is that there are extra functions on the contract itself. The interface looks different, and it helps facilitate us by adding metadata to our contract in JSON format. Before we go down the rabbit hole of the inner workings of the contract, let me explain that the metadata simply returns to us information of each one of these tokens. And then we can return in that metadata a link to an image. And this image, whether a PFP, whatever it might be, can be read through a marketplace. So that means that each picture might be different, thus giving each one of these tokens a different value. And that is an interesting concept, because seeing that these tokens are of the same contract, so you might say I've got one punk and your friend might have one punk, but your punk will not have the same value as your friend's punk, and therefore it has different values and it's not directly tradable. So this brings us to the name NFT. And that's what it stands for, non-fungible token. The ERC721 is the most popular contract, but the 1155 is starting to get more popular. And why is that? Well, let's start off with the contract, and right off the bat, I'm going to tell you guys that the 1155 is a mixture between the 720 and 721. So the 1155 contract is basically exactly the same as this one, where there's an amount of tokens that can increase, but it is not distributed to addresses. Think of these as the individual tokens themselves. Each one of these tokens is known as a different item. If we think about a game and we need some weaponry, we can have a rifle, a bazooka, we can have some ammunition, we can have hand grenades, and so on. Well, each one of these items have their own supply. So there might be 10 or 100 of the rifle and 2 of the bazooka, so it will only be distributed twice. Let's say there is 10,000 of the ammunition and only 50 hand grenades. So you can see how these can get distributed to different holders. That's why it is a very intuitive contract for game developers. This contract has exactly the same functionality that the 721 provides. That's why each one of these different elements also can have its own image and its own metadata. How wonderful is that? This means it's great for game development, and we will be deploying a contract like this. Not for game development though, but for my personal art collection. So let's dive in and start. In order to follow along, you're going to need the following elements. So create a folder and drop these in there. We are going to need a banner, which is a banner that's going to be displayed on OpenSea, and we are going to configure it after we have deployed our collection. The banner size on OpenSea recommends 1400 by 400 pixels. I always personally double the pixel size to get a better quality, but you can play around with it. Then you're also going to need a folder with an image inside. This is going to be the actual artwork image or game item that you're going to upload. You don't have to upload all your images at once. You can do it one by one, and I'll show you how. My first image is this face that I drew. This is how my artworks look, and from now on I'm going to be starting a personal collection called Daniel. So be sure to check it out. The size of this image is all dependent on you and your artwork. Next, create a logo image. OpenSea recommends 350 by 350 pixels, and again, I sometimes make it 512, but you can play around with it. Next, create a folder and call it metadata. We're going to be using the metadata structure that OpenSea provides at this link. We are going to add these elements in a JSON format file. So go ahead and copy this. Once you have copied this, let's create a file in that folder. And go ahead and create a file called metadata.json. You're going to place that in the metadata folder and then paste the contents from OpenSea in there. Save it, and it should look like this. The format should be .json. And there you have it. This is our starting folder structure. I can remove this unwanted file. So we have our banner, our image, our logo, and our metadata. Next, we are going to go to pinata.cloud. You can go and subscribe here, try it for free, and a free subscription is more than enough that you'll need to upload to the IPFS network. This is my subscription, and for the purposes of this video, I have hidden my current links. However, all you need to do is click on upload, upload a folder. The folder that I'm going to upload is this images folder. Now, it only contains one image, and remember, this is our face. And I'm going to click on upload, say yes, and then give it a name. For this, I'm going to append my collection's name, which is Daniel, and then the artwork, face, image. Say upload. After it is done uploading, we will be provided with our custom hash, the CID. Now we can go ahead and copy this because we will use this in our metadata. To briefly explain where the image now lives, if we click on this eye icon, we can see it loads up, and if we click on the face.png, this is the fully qualified, I would say, hash, and then we get the URL. This beginning part over here is simply the provider. the gateway that serves the data. We can use any provider on the IPFS network and we should be able to retrieve our data, our image. I am now going to go ahead and update my metadata. I can open this in the text editor like we did before and change it and save this out. But for some reason, if I open this in Visual Studio Code, which is a code editor, I get this weird stuff. These are things that you don't need. And just to explain the parts that you don't need all of that stuff. You definitely don't need that, as well as all these little backward slashes like so. So I'm going to take these out so we get back to our pure metadata. So make sure that yours looks like this. We are going to now update all these fields starting with the image because we still have the CID copied. There's a certain format that we need to use for that. And it looks like this. You write IPFS / the CID and then the extension. So for instance, we have face.png. And if you just want to double check this back part, you can always go back to the browser, and this is how the IPFS link looks like. Go back to that extension and make sure that this part is exactly the same that you have in here. Just to recap, this CID is the CID and should be the CID of your artwork that you have uploaded. Going back to the metadata, there are some extra fields that we can fill in. I am not going to have an external link and also no attributes. Remember with JSON to remove this last comma. All my image is going to have is a name, a description, and of course where it lives. I'm going to go ahead and update the description as well as the name. Now I have updated the description as well as the image and the name. After saving this JSON file now, we can go back to IPFS, but this time upload another folder and we are going to select the metadata folder. So we're going to go one step back, click on metadata and say upload. We're going to give this the name again, this time Daniel Face and metadata. Perfect. Now we have the image as well as our metadata. We can now go and have a look at the metadata by clicking on the eye icon. Check it over there where it says metadata.json, and if we click on that, we get to see this beautiful metadata JSON. This IPFS link will be picked up by the marketplace displaying the image. So this is the actual link that we'll link once we have deployed our smart contract. We are now going to start with the smart contract. But before we do, I would like to take this time to please ask you guys to go and support me with my channel by subscribing and giving this video a like if you love the content that I make. Let me know in the comments what you think or what you would like to see next. Lastly, this is my main channel, the HashLips NFT. But I have also recently started the HashLips 9to5 channel. Please go and search for that or check in the descriptions for a link and go and watch my latest video on how I actually 3D print and organize my life. There's also a nice video on the Ledger Nano. Anyway, that being said, let's jump back to GitHub. On the HashLips GitHub repos, you can find the repo where it says HashLips NFT contract. Then click on contract and go down to where you can find the simple NFT ERC1155. Always know that I'm doing these as tutorials and examples, so please do your due diligence when you apply this in real life and in production. I'm going to go ahead and copy all the code. Then we're going to move over to remix.ethereum.org, which is a great online compiler for Solidity. Make sure that we have a new workspace by clicking on that plus icon and saying OK. We are now going to create a brand new contract. On the contracts folder over there, right click, say new file, and I'm going to call my file daniel.sol. Then I'm going to paste all the contents that I copied from the GitHub repo. This should take a second, and if you go to this section over here and click on auto compile, you will actually see the dependencies starting to fill up. The contract is basically ready. However, the only things we need to change is the name, which I am now going to call Daniel. And for the symbol, I'll simply call it DNL, like that. I'm going to go ahead and flatten the contract. This is so that we can get all the dependencies in one file. You can go down here for the plugins, then search for flatten, and there we go. Activate it, and you should get a scroll down here. Click on save, or flatten first and then save, accept, and if we go back, you'll see that the flatten contract is way down here on the bottom. We can now see that everything flattened out, and one more thing that I'll need to do in the contract is actually rename this contract over here as well. So instead of saying NFT 1155, I'm going to call this Daniel as well, just to keep everything consistent. Then I can decorate this, and I can maybe go in here where I changed some words into ASCII art. I'm going to go back and just replace it in there. It's important to have the comment sections over there because you don't want this to be on an uncommented section. I'm going to cut these out, then organize it a bit more nicer, go all the way to the top, and way here, before everything starts, paste my name. Then I'm going to go back to the previous contract, copy the license, go back, and put the license MIT at the very top. If you have done everything successful to this point, you should see a green tick. I'm going to go to the deploy and run transaction section. Everything I'm going to do now, you should be testing in a virtual machine first, so leaving it on the JavaScript virtual machine, and then going ahead and deploying the Daniel and the Daniel flat contract over there, clicking on deploy and testing it out first, because you can go down there and test all the functions. I'm going to go ahead and deploy this directly on the Ethereum network. So I'm going to go and choose injected Web3 and then make sure that I am on the main network and I have the correct wallet connected. You can also verify it over here. Then what I need to do, make sure that I am on the correct contract, and it's basically the one that you have changed the name before. So it says your name and then the contract. Then after doing this, I'm going to hit deploy. Depending on what the gas fees are, it might cost more or less that this is displayed over here. It's calculating, and this will cost me about $600. I'm going to click on confirm. While waiting for the deployment to take place, we can actually have a look on how the progress is going by going to the latest transaction, clicking on the blockchain on Etherscan and checking the progress. This will say successful once it's complete. So give it some time and I'll show you what to do next. Once this is successful, there's a crucial step that you have to take. Go to the contract address which is allocated over here. Once this is loaded up, it will show actually the contract name and everything. What you can do now is go to the contract section over there and verify the contract. This is an important step because without this you won't be able to interact with your contract directly on Etherscan. So this is the contract that we're going to verify. We're going to select single file because we flattened our file. Then the compiler type, I'm going to use 0.8.7 because I know if we go to remix and we go up here, this is the version that we used. Then we had auto compile, but there was no optimization. keep that in mind. If we go back, we can just select the license type, which is MIT. Click Continue. Once we get to this page, we can leave the optimization to be no. And then we need to go to Remix, select all the code. I can click Command A on a Mac and copy it, because we're going to go back and paste all the code in this section. For the ABI arguments, we didn't have any, and this is another step, and there's other videos that I've made to show you how to do this if you had arguments. But now I can leave this empty. I can verify that I'm not a robot, and then verify and publish. It will look like this when everything was successful. We can now go to the contract, and when we get here on the contract section itself, we will actually be able to see our code that we have written and placed in here. What's also more important is that we can write to the contract. So now, when we write to the contract, how do we add an NFT? Normal users will not be able to click on Mint, and the reason for this is because this is the owner-only function. There are different ways of doing 1155 contracts, but this is how I want to do mine for my art project. So, if I want to add an NFT so it gets displayed on OpenSea and for me to sell it, I will now need to mint and then decide how many of this particular artwork I want. In order to mint an NFT, make sure that you mint it to yourself or to someone else. I'm going to simply copy my address and then make sure that I connect with this address to this smart contract. It has to be the owner's address that created the smart contract. I am now going to paste the address here, which is my current address. Then the token ID, I'm going to choose this as number 1. And the amount of NFTs I want of this ID will be 25. There will only ever be 25 artworks of the face artwork that I'm going to place. I'm going to say write, and then MetaMask should pop up and telling me this will cost about $13. I'm going to say confirm. We can also view the transaction, and once this has gone through successfully, we then can update the UID for this particular token. We can see that this was a success, and 25 of token ID 1 have been minted. Now we can go back to our contract, because the next step that we need to do is actually assign the metadata associated with this ID. So click on this function, and it's called setURI, because we need to now set the URI for this ID. We are going to choose ID 1, and we need to give it a string. The string that we need to give it is going to be this metadata, but it needs to be this metadata, not just the face. It needs to be the one that gives us the description, the image, and the name. So you can now either copy this whole UID, or we can also go ahead and actually just provide the IPFS link. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, and then when I go back to my contract, I'm going to say IPFS : / and then my CID with the metadata.json. I'm going to click on write, and then it's going to ask me to update this, which I'm going to say confirm. I can view the transaction, and then once this is done, I should be able to see my token on OpenSea. I kept on mentioning UID and URI interchangeably. When I said UID, I meant URI. This is a URI or URL as it's known. But however, this was a success, and we can now jump over to OpenSea. If everything worked out as it should, if we scroll down, we can see our newly created artwork. And there we go. I can now click on this, and let's see what's happening. We can see there's the artwork, and there is the actual name. I don't think that this is how I want the name to be displayed, so let me go and see if I can change this. Before we try and change the collection's name, we can indeed see that the name of the artwork is being pulled in successfully, as well as the description and the image. So it means that it's working. Being the owner of this collection and make sure that you are on the correct wallet address on OpenSea as well, we can click on the collection and then go up here on the edit button. We can click there and then fill in the details. Remember I said we need a logo image as well as a banner. I'm going to go and update these from our file that we have saved in here. This one will be the banner and this one will be the logo. So simply go and upload them by clicking on them and then uploading the logo as well as the banner. After I've done that, this one isn't compulsory because it will be automatically taken from either the logo or the banner. Here is my name. Now I think if I only use Daniel, this might have been taken already. So I had to come up with a few different names and I finally thought of Daniel the artist, which is fine. And I'm also going to update this URL. So Daniel the artist, like so. Hopefully this is available, and yes it is. Then I can go ahead and paste some description, select a category, and mine is going to be art, as well as connect my Twitter account. I have connected my HashLips NFT Twitter account, but before you do this, make sure that you filled out all the details and clicked on save, and then come back and do this again. Because otherwise you're going to click on it, it's going to redirect you, and you're going to have to do it all again. So first finish all the details. Next is my website, and then I have a few options for Discord, Instagram, and all this nice things. For now, I'm just going to leave my website. Next, we can see what the earnings are as a percentage. So I can maybe make it a 5% of the sales. The revenue can maybe come to the same account. So I can paste that in there. And then this is on the Ethereum blockchain. And which tokens as payment would you like to accept? I always like to choose the cover because it looks better when it's displayed. Lastly, click on Submit Changes. I think this looks fantastic. We now have a successful collection up and running on OpenSea. We have our Twitter linked, a name, the banners, but how do we sell our artworks? Well, I can click now on my artwork and see that I own 25 of these artworks. I can click on sell, and I would like to sell a quantity of 23. I would always like to keep 2 for myself because this is at the end of the day my artworks. Then a price per item would, I think, 0.2 is a fair price considering that this is my personal artwork as well as the low edition counts of the face. Then we can go down and we can see that there's a duration for 7 days. You can also maybe change this to 1 month, and I'm going to change that. Then I'm going to see that this is the service fees that's going to be added, which is fine, and this is when someone purchases and they're trading. Now I'm going to say complete listing, and now these artworks will be available on the blockchain for 0.2 Ether each. If everything were to sell, that is a handsome 4.6 Ether. For me, it's very important that people buying NFTs fall in love with them. So, this is not financial advice, but if you would like to own a Daniel face and you would like to see all the other artworks that's going to come out on this collection, go ahead and get one. I can now just sign this to complete the listing, and then it's going to list them on OpenSea. Now we can see it has a price and someone can buy it. I obviously can't buy it because I own all of them. And that's how it works. If you ever want to add a new artwork now to this collection, what you'll need to do is create the image, the metadata, and then go to the contract and make sure that you click on the right function like I explained before and go and mint it, as well as update the URI. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video tutorial. If you did, like I say, leave me a like, subscribe, and comment. I will see you guys in the next video.